Hi everyone, welcome to So What? I hope you're having a great day so far. I, as usual, am kind of scrambling to get it together today, but here we are and I'm so excited. It is our very first So What of 2021. So, lots of great things to come this year with Sulky. I'm just so excited to get started with you all today. So I wanted to let you all know that we had an absolutely fantastic New Year's Eve event. For those of you who joined us on New Year's Eve, thank you so much for making it one of my favorite New Year's Eves ever. I really didn't know what to expect this year since none of us could, be with extended family or friends and basically confined to our homes. And honestly, it was the best time. The live chat was absolutely hysterical. A lot of you decided to not even sew and to just participate in the live chat so that we could talk together, have conversations on the side. It was challenging and so worth it. And so I thank you very much for coming along. For those of you who missed it, you can still access the event if you want to check it out and have a really, really awesome 4-hour sew along class. It didn't even feel like a class to me. I don't know how all of you felt, but if you joined us, give me a thumbs up, some kind of little emoji so that I know that you're back with me today. And I wanted to share with you some of the pictures we've been getting from people who joined us on New Year's Eve. And, they've been posting on social media and using our New Year's Eve hashtag and posting on our Sulky Facebook page so that we could see their finished bags. And I thought I had mine right here, but of course I'm always missing something. Maybe I can get one of my children to come down here and hand me my bag since I'm kind of trapped in my setup here. But at any rate, I got 2 bags done for the event. Ooh, yay, a child has appeared. Hey, Dylan, could you grab me those 2 bags that are right there? He's sighing. He doesn't want to help, but it's quite right there, honey. No, see those little fringy things? Yeah, I don't need the plastic. Yeah, just those 2. Perfect. Thank you. Everyone says, thanks, Dylan. All right, so.
Good boy.
You are a good boy. Okay. See, having the children still at home, it's worth it on so many levels. Okay. My bags are kind of twisted, but so here's the one I made during the event. Fringy and fun with our little birdie embroidery. So cute. Love it. And then this is the one I did prior to the event with the little hand embroidery version. So there were 2 versions. You could still access the event if you want to. You can go to our education platform, which is sewingonline.sulky.com, and you can sign up for the New Year's Eve event. We have lots of other events to choose from. I'm going to give you a sneak peek of our next video cast event at the end of today's show as well, so you can sign up for that one. It's actually happening next Tuesday. So we're just moving fast and furious. We've got lots and lots of things to share with you this year as well as this month. So get ready. Hold on to your hats and glasses. All right, let me go ahead and show you some of the pictures that people have been sharing of their bags. So this is a bag that someone artfully displayed on their cute little bear. But I just love the combination of embroidery designs that they chose for their bag. It turned out so great. All right, and then we've got this one, really pretty. They chose to use that purplish, bluish thread for their bird, and there was a little bit of a debate throughout the night. What kind of bird is this? Is this a peace dove or an eagle? So a lot of people had some different opinions during the event on that one, so that was fun. But this one turned out really great. And then we've also got this one. So I actually love the setup of this image. This is so Instagram worthy, right? We've got the sewing and embroidery machine in the background, the little ticket that came with the kit to invite you formally to the event, and the thread spools, the sulky stiffy stabilizer that we used for embroidery that night. It's just a very well composed photo. So that's awesome. And I love the large scale embroidery on this one. I think it just turned out so great. So a lot of you are coming in saying that you didn't finish your bag during the class, but you finished it afterwards on New Year's Day. It was just a really great activity for the new year. So, and as you could see, I still have, this is a different setup. This isn't what I had set up for New Year's Eve, but I have 3 different projects going on right now, and my year is off to a very busy start. So hopefully you all be enjoying what is coming up. All right, so let's see. Instead of talking about our next event at the end of the So What episode today, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it now. So at sewingonline.sulky.com, you will find all of our past webinars, all of our free webinar content where we have partnered with really great designers and industry folks, quilting, sewing, serging, machine embroidery, handwork, all kinds of content, all kinds of projects. And they are all housed on that new education platform. So some people get a little bit confused because they have been registered for a webinar in the past and now they can't access it. Well, that's because we switched to this new and improved awesome platform where we can bring you videos, we can have you store all of your events in a library where all of your downloads and freebies and everything will live. So it's actually really, really much easier to access all of that stuff. So we had to move all of that stuff over to the new platform. So anything that you viewed before, you'll have to basically register for it again. All that means is you're going to add it to your library. So I know that's a little bit confusing, but hopefully you still find it very user-friendly and you still enjoy the process of exploring everything that we have on this cool platform. All right, so I digress a little bit, but Quilting with Sparkle is our next video cast, and we are bringing this to you with MJ Kinman. We have done 2 previous webinars with MJ. If you're not familiar with her, she is the designer behind these beautiful gemstone quilts. And I have a couple, I think right here, that I can show you. So she has done a Birthstone quilt series where there are blocks that represent gems for each birthstone of the year. So this is the February birthstone, the amethyst, and these are large scale blocks. This ends up being 17 inches square. And so you can create all the blocks in her series and create this beautiful gemstone quilt, or you can just choose to grab one for maybe your birthstone, that type of thing. Now, I have created these before, and we have an entire blog series of sew-alongs. They're not video sew-alongs. They're a blog series of sew-alongs of my experience working through these patterns. So it looks super complicated, right? It looks very challenging. And I will say it was a challenge to kind of get into the groove of understanding MJ's patterns and how they sort of work, because her piecing technique is different from what I've experienced in the past. You actually fuse your templates to the right side of your fabric, and then you piece together the entire quilt block, and then you peel up all of that paper, and she uses freezer paper so it leaves no residue behind, and it reveals this block that you've been putting together. So the whole time that you're piecing it together, you're looking at all of these pieces of paper with codes and this and that, so you know which goes where. And then at the end is the very satisfying big reveal as you peel away all the pieces of paper. So it's a very unique way of putting something together like this. If you think there's no way I could possibly make something like that that looks like a diamond or an amethyst, you're wrong, because if I can do it, any of you can do it. So that being said, we have done webinars with MJ in the past where we showcased these birthstone blocks. We also did a webinar with her using her new Diamond Diva patterns, which are large scale quilts with the same piecing principle. Now we are going on the super small scale. So, have you all heard of these mini quilts or mini piecing projects that are becoming increasingly popular because you can use all your little tiny scraps that you cannot bear to throw away? And I have seen a lot of people work on these when we used to be in person doing classes. People kind of using their pockets of time to do little piecing projects or little paper piecing projects where you're using these little tiny pieces of fabric. Well, we worked with MJ to come up with an exclusive pattern. It's called the Pinwheel Princess Pattern. You will get the pattern for free when you purchase the video cast. So you can just consider it buying the pattern and kind of getting the video cast for free. Any way you look at it, it's a great, great value. So this is a little 6-inch block, and it's an exclusive gem that MJ created for Sulky, or for the purposes of this video cast, I should say. And we're going to learn a bunch of different colorways for the block so that we can create our own gemstones. And you can even create a gem that isn't even found in nature, but now it is in fabric form. So you can see it here a little bit. It's kind of skewed by that beautiful thread, but not only are we going to learn about the Pinwheel Princess block, but we're also going to learn how to quilt with Sulky Polystar Thread. Now, this is the thread I've been talking about for weeks, maybe even months. I don't know. The days are running together. But Polystar is a polyester thread that has flecks of metallic running through it. So this is the easiest metallic thread to sew I have found in my experience. It's a 30 weight thread, so great for quilting because it's going to really pop. It has a nice weight to it. So we are going to learn how to quilt with it. And what better thing to quilt with a metallic flecked thread than a gemstone block? So you're going to create a little gem, and then you're going to give it sparkle and shine with fabulous thread. So please join us for this video cast. Like I said, it's next week already, next Tuesday afternoon. It will be happening at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you adjust for the time zone so that you're not late or you don't miss it. But again, if you do miss it, you can watch it at any time that's convenient for you once the live event ends. So just like New Year's Eve, you'll be able to watch it whenever you want, as many times as you want. All right, so that's Quilting with Sparkle. You will find that, again, I linked to it in the description of today's post, so you can just easily click on over and register. But also, if you're at sewingonline.sulky.com, browse the education offerings and you will find that there as well. So next week, I'm hoping that MJ will join me on the So What, so she can tell you a little bit more about herself, how she kind of started developing these patterns. It's a fascinating story, and she really, really is just very, very innovative with her quilting patterns. So, okay. So let's get to the topic at hand today, right? Which is loungewear. Now, loungewear is really the new office attire for 2021. I'm lounging it up today. And every day, really. Actually, So What gives me the opportunity to actually put some makeup on my face. So I appreciate it for that because it's lots of fun. But at any rate, I was going to do a video on workout wear because typically after the first of the year, when we've all been super gluttonous over the holiday and eating all the pecan pie that we can get our hands on, we're very motivated to work out for the new year, to kind of get back in shape, start those diets over again, things like that. And I thought, you know what? It's 2021. We are surviving a pandemic. Why stress out over working out? So let's create some loungewear instead. Take the stress off, right? We can use that loungewear to either dress up or dress down for our Zooming video chats with our boss/coworkers. Or we can use that loungewear to work out, or we can use that loungewear to binge our Netflix. So it has multiple uses, this loungewear, and can mean multiple things, really. So when I think of loungewear, I think of, sweatpants. I think of leggings. I even would think of certain pajama pants, yoga pants, comfy t-shirts, things like that. So let me know what you consider your loungewear to be. What is your go-to day-to-day sort of relaxation wear? The thing that really brings all of this loungewear together is that typically we're making it out of some kind of knit fabric, right? We want something that stretches, something that is nice feeling against the skin, something that's either flowy or tight, depending on the type of loungewear you like. Some people like tight leggings, so they can wear something loose over the top. Some people like a little flowier legging, right? So that's really going to depend on your preference. However, it almost always dictates that we use a knit type of fabric. And there are so many different types of knits. So how do we know which one to choose for our pattern or project, right? So in the description of today's post is a link to a blog that we just published this morning. And if you go to that blog post, you will find some links for some different fabrics, different companies that I like to go to choose from a high quality knit fabric. So one of my favorites to use that I've used in the past is So English Fabrics. They have a great selection of really buttery, flowy knits that are great to sew. You can tell they're good quality because you cannot see through them, which is very important when you're making leggings, am I right? And just when you kind of stretch the fabric apart, it has great retention. So it comes right back, right? We don't stretch it and then it just kind of falls apart. So that is what I'm looking for when I'm making some kind of loungewear. Jersey knit, slinky knit, if you want something really flowy, interlock knit, sweatshirt fleece. Now, I run very hot. I don't know about you, but I am a hot person, okay? I have my studio down in my basement, and it has no heat at all. It's about 40 degrees outside. I am loving it. I feel like I have air conditioning. And we're in the middle of winter, okay? All that being said, I don't like a sweatshirt fleece that's really thick, especially with pants. Right after I put them on, I have to take them off and put some shorts on. So that's just me. Maybe you run cold and a heavier weight sweatshirt fleece would work. Now that's going to be a little less stretchy than a lighter weight sweatshirt fleece. So always look at the fabric content when you are buying your fabric. Look at the stretch recovery, the stretch percentage, and the fabric weight, okay? And you just have to gauge, do I want something heavier weight that's gonna, that I can wear outside as well? Do I want something really flowy? Then I'll go with a slinkier knit or a jersey knit that has a lot of drape and flowiness. Or do I want something a little bit more structured? or something that is super tight. So if you want something super tight, you want to have spandex blend. If you want something a little bit looser, you want to have a little bit more cotton in there. So just things to consider. Velour also makes great loungewear, right? Back in the days of like the Victoria's Secret tracksuit, those I am seeing coming back, but in a different style. So another great choice if you want to be a little bit more luxurious with your loungewear. So just some things to keep in mind as far as the fabric goes. Seek out these, smaller businesses like So English rather than going to, a big box store. Let's give them our business during this time. We want everybody to survive, right? This pandemic. So, ask around your sewing groups and your sewing guild, and see what everybody is kind of gravitating towards. But definitely check that blog post out, because I linked to So English to some of the flowier, nice buttery knits. When I made my kids' pajama pants prior to Christmas, I used their really great buttery knit fabrics, and man, my kids are living in those right now. So they're into the loungewear too, right? Might as well have fun with it and have a pajama day every day when you're doing remote school. Why not? All right, so when we're talking about fabrics, we need to make sure we're choosing the right needle for our fabrics. Ooh, also, I was talking about stretch percentage. I did see someone ask that in the comments here. I can't find it. However, this is a great photo that shows how to gauge the percentage of stretch. So when you're working with a pattern, it's going to tell you, hey, you need to be using a fabric with at least 50% stretch or 75% stretch. So here's how to gauge that. Basically, cut off a little piece of your fabric and take it against that stretch gauge, literally against the pattern, and stretch the fabric. See how far it will go, and still, keep its shape, not be see-through, that type of thing. See how far it will go. Then you can let it go and see if it bounces right back as well. So if you have to, bring the pattern envelope. A lot of the times this is on the cover of the pattern or available prior to purchasing that pattern as well. You can also reach out to the pattern designer, especially if you're going with an independent pattern designer. Reach out to them and say, what percentage of stretch do I need for this pattern? It's usually in the description as well. So you can make sure to buy the proper fabric, right? So I have definitely done this in the past. I fall in love with a fabric print and I'm like, oh, it's a little bit thicker than I need. It doesn't have quite as much stretch, but I think I can make it work. And I'm pretty much always disappointed with myself. I wish that I had gone with something stretchier, something flowier. Why did I let that fabric print tell me what to do? But, most of the time I will still wear the garment. So there's that. But anyways, keep in mind the percentage of stretch of fabric that you're buying. That was my point there. All right, so needles. I talk a lot about needles. Organ needles are my needle of choice. They are the needle that comes with a lot of sewing machines. You know how you'll get your sewing machine out of the box, and there's typically even a needle installed or a pack of needles that comes with it. A lot of the times those are organ needles. So I like to stick with the needle that came with my machine. I guess I'm just a purist that way. But I also happen to really like the packaging of these needles because they allow you to kind of keep your needles neat and tidy and organized. And there's a corrugated cardboard in the inside of your needle pack. I'll show you right here. So when you take your needle out and use it, if you use a lot of different types of needles like I do, and you definitely need a different type of needle for stretch fabrics, knit fabrics, when you go to swap your needle and you haven't gotten all of the needle life out of it yet, you can put it a couple of notches to the right or left. See that? And then when you go to store your needles, you know which one to go back to until you have gotten all of your needle life out of it. So I happen to like that about it too. Just wanted to share. Okay. So the reason that you need a jersey needle, or sometimes they are just called stretch needles when working with knit fabrics, is because a knit fabric is composed of lots of like interlocking fibers, right? It's not a woven fabric. It looks like it's been knitted with tiny little knitting needles. So if you're using a universal or a sharp needle with a sharp point, it's going to try to pierce the fabric in order to make room for your little strand of thread. Now that can cause holes in the knit. It can cause snags, things like that. So the reason we use a jersey needle is because, or it'll be called a ballpoint needle as well. It has a ball point that pushes those knitted fibers aside to make room for the stitch. Okay, so that eliminates the probability of having a hole or snag in your fabric while you're sewing. Lots of people are asking questions about this. Okay, Joanne says, what is the difference between a jersey and a stretch needle? Nothing. The name. I once talked to the great Sandra Betsina. Love her. Back when I was doing Sew It All TV on PBS, I had Sandra Betsina come on as a guest because I am basically obsessed with her. She is one of my mentors in the sewing industry. She's just fantastic, especially for garment sewing. Great, great resource. She's designed patterns for Vogue Patterns forever. She's just timeless. I can't say enough. I asked her that very question. Why do we have to call this something different if it's not? Why confuse us all, right? I don't have the answer to that. But a jersey and a stretch needle are the same. All right. What is not the same, however, is a jersey and a super stretch needle when organ needles are concerned. Okay? Super stretch you want to use when you're working with like a slinky knit. And just like the name suggests, if your fabric is super stretchy, you'll want to use a super stretch needle. Now, a super stretch is going to be a little bit narrower than a jersey needle, so that when you're using these fabrics that have great amount of stretch, it's going to slip in and push those fibers apart without creating excess stretch or puckering while you're sewing. Does that make sense? So you might want to grab one of each pack of needles, get them in an assortment so you have a couple of different sizes. Like this photo indicates, this is an assorted pack of super stretch needles, so you get some 75s and some 90s, depending on the thread weight that you're working with. Grab both of those so that depending on the fabric that you end up getting for your loungewear, you're prepared with any type of needle you might need. There's nothing more frustrating than going to start a project and realizing you don't have the right needle. And then 9 times out of 10, we just try and sew it anyways. Am I right? I know I do. So very important, just stock up on some needles for 2021 so that you just have them at hand. Just grab quilting assortment, some stretch assortments, or a jersey or super stretch, that type of thing. Sharon is asking, so the super stretch is also a ballpoint? Yes, it is. All right. Okay. Just making sure I'm caught up on some of the comments about the needles. Okay. So another great needle choice, and this would be for finishing your loungewear, is a twin needle. Now, I was going to talk about twin needles when I did the episode on pajama pants, and I completely forgot to even discuss them. So I apologize for that, but let's discuss them now. If you have your twin needle questions, put them in the comments so that I can address them. twin needles come in different widths, okay? Obviously, a twin needle is two needles in the same shaft. The shaft is what you insert into your machine and screw in there. So there are two needles that you thread. Now, if you have two spool pins on your machine, like I do with my Husqvarna Viking Designer Epic 2, very easy to use a twin needle. You just thread two spools up and across into the same threading mechanism, and then thread each needle separately. Now, some machines will have you do one needle at a time, then put your second thread through the threading mechanism and the take-up lever and all that. So just refer to your machine manual. I don't think I've ever experienced or seen a sewing machine manual that didn't at least give you a couple of tips about working with a twin needle. But if that is the case, I highly suggest go to the website of your machine manufacturer. I'm sure there's a lot of information there because each machine is different. Each machine is going to have its little idiosyncrasies to basically differentiate it from the competition. So just be aware of that and make sure you're threading it properly. Make sure your presser foot is up always when you're threading your machine as well. All right, so the reason I like a twin needle for knits or stretch fabric is for finishing. A twin needle is great for necklines of t-shirts, for doing that top stitching. You can get on either side of your seam and do really professional looking top stitching. You can finish your hems this way with a twin needle. You can even do decorative top stitching, okay? Keep in mind though, you want certain areas to also be able to stretch so that you can get that neck band or neck cuff neckline over the top of your head. It needs to be able to still stretch, things like that. But when you're using this for finishing touches, it works great. For the edge of a sleeve, using a twin needle, so that type of thing. So some people are saying, where do I use the second spool of thread? So if you don't have two spool pins, like I'm saying that I do here, you can oftentimes turn your bobbin winder into your second spool pin. So you may have actually gotten a second spool pin with your little pack of goodies, with your other presser feet, things like that. And you're like, what is this for? That basically transforms your bobbin winder into your second spool pin. So you can stick that in there, wind a second spool. If you don't have that option as well, sometimes you can set it next to or in front of your machine. There are contraptions you can purchase that give you a secondary spool pin. So there are a lot of options out there. And I think you'll really have fun experimenting with twin needles. And again, they come in different widths, meaning the needles are narrower or placed farther together or farther apart, depending on that width of the needle. So you really just need to gauge, let's say you're doing a neckline, you need to understand how far apart you want those stitches to be. Do you want them really far apart? Do you want them close together? I like them pretty tight together. That's just preference. All right. Lynn is asking, would a serger be a choice since they're already multi-needle? So that is another great thing about sergers or reason to have a serger rather, because sewing knits is so easy when you have a serger. Your layers of fabric go under the presser foot at the same rate. You are finishing your seam and sewing it at the same time. You can get very, very narrow with your seam allowance so that if you have tight leggings, you don't have a big old bump of seam allowance along the sides of your legs. This type of thing. I Love using my serger. I would use it for everything if I could. However, if you want that decorative twin needle top stitching, you will have to do serger and standard sewing machine to complete your loungewear projects. So just keep that in mind. However, if you have a serger that also does a cover stitch, like this beauty right here, this is a Baby Lock Triumph, and it's threaded with Polydeco, sulky polyester Polydeco thread. I will get to that in just a moment. But that one also has a cover stitch option. So you can switch over to cover stitch and finish all of your hems and even the waistband, if you so desire, using the cover stitch option. And you never have to go to your standard sewing machine when you have that option. So there are so many things to discuss about working with a serger, and in 2021, I pledge that we will have more serger content. And Katrina Walker, who is a really, really great educator we've had on just a number of webinars as well. She's like my serger goddess. Whenever I have a question, I go straight to her. So we have had a serger webinar with Katrina where we worked with woven fabrics, and I really would like to do one in the future where we are working with knits. So to come, everyone. All right, so let's talk about another helpful little notion that's great for stretch fabrics. Now, when you're not using a serger and you're working with your standard sewing machine, and actually even when you are using a serger, it can become difficult to have a consistent seam allowance when you are sewing. First and foremost, you want to make sure your sewing machine is on a table. If you have one of those tables where your sewing surface is flush with the rest of your table, that is awesome, because especially in the case of a super, super stretchy fabric, you don't want your fabric kind of falling over and pulling, right, away from your needle. And if you have a long pair of pants, the probability of that happening, or of some of your yardage kind of spilling onto the floor or away from your table, is pretty great. So it can be hard to have a consistent seam allowance that isn't puckery when the majority of your fabric is kind of pooling away from the machine bed. So keep that in mind. You can also kind of rig something to extend your sewing machine bed. If you have a box or something, and you can tape the bottom of it to the top of your table so that your fabric is all sitting at the same plane while you're sewing, that can be very helpful. Also, what I find helpful are these really great little sticky seam guides. Now, you could certainly use painter's tape or washi tape, something like that, and tape along your machine bed, following the lines on your throat plate that are already etched in there. Put a piece of tape. That way you are always lining up the edge of your fabric against the edge of the tape, and you have a consistent seam allowance the entire time that you're sewing. You can also do this on your serger. My serger has very, very small, or one of my sergers has a very, very small little seam allowance indicator lines. And oftentimes while I'm sewing really fast, I can't really see them as well as I would like to. So you can put a little piece of tape that extends that line so that your entire length of fabric feeds evenly into the machine, with the same seam allowance. But I found these little seam guide tape pieces online at Guidelines for Quilting. They have really great rulers and things like that as well. I link right to this in that blog post I was telling you about that's in the description of today's post. So these seam guides, they're already pre-cut. You just put them right on your throat plate and start sewing. And they're repositionable, and they don't harm your machine bed, things like that. So that's just another helpful thing, especially if you're, whether you're sewing knits or sewing woven, especially if you like doing a lot of quilting, This will keep your scant 1/4 inch seam allowance very, very consistent. So that's just another tip for you. All right, let me see if I am answering the questions here. Oh, and thank you, Amy. Amy is saying, make sure you get a twin needle that works with the stitch width limitations of your machine. Some of these machines can get really wide, or some of these needles can get really wide for the larger machines. Thank you so much, Amy. Yes, that's a great, great point. You need to make sure you don't go too wide and that you are not able to use that on your machine. Pat is asking, would you recommend using a walking foot with stretchy fabrics? A walking foot can work great with stretch fabrics. I do find sometimes with a slinkier, lighter weight knit that it actually inhibits my sewing in a way. So, you know, I like using a walking foot for heavier knit fabrics, and that just might be my own experience. So definitely give it a try. But again, like I mentioned with the serger, you want those fabric layers feeding through the machine at the same rate. So if the bottom fabric layer is getting hung up on those feed dogs and the top layer is kind of slipping away from it, definitely try a walking foot. That is a great, great idea. Another thing you can do is... I lost my train of thought. Another thing you can do is lessen the presser foot pressure. So if you're working with a little bit heavier knit, you don't have a walking foot, and you're finding that tension on that lower layer, it's usually the lower layer that's getting hung up, you can try lessening your presser foot pressure, which will lift it up just slightly, allowing that lower layer to feed properly with the upper layer. So something like a sweatshirt knit, terry, you might find that helpful as well. All right. Yes, Sharon is saying, could you do a class using the serger and knits? Yes, yes, yes. I really, really would like to. I plan on that coming in 2021. We have a really good schedule of upcoming webcasts, video casts, for the first part of the year. So I definitely think that we could all use some more serger education. We could just, you know, there are so many things that you can do with a serger, and it's really hard to crack the surface because, you know, we just, in this day and age, have so many projects, so little time. So that would be great. Yes, and Gigi says, show the cover stitch as well. Absolutely. Oh, and Marjorie, good point. Marjorie says, be sure you have a rectangular hole in your needle plate when you're using a twin needle. That is an excellent point. You don't want your needle to touch that throat plate and break off and start flying through the air. So very, very good point. Thank you so much. All right, and more twin needle recommendations. Luana says, with twin needles, I learned the hard way that you need to make certain the opening of your presser foot is wide enough to accommodate the width of your selected twin needles. So not only do you need that opening on the throat plate, but also on your presser foot. All right, you want to make sure you have an open presser foot so that there's enough room for your twin needle to move around. Okay. Let's see. Let's make sure we're... Julie says, my passion is quilting. All of this is new to me. I'm finding it very interesting. Thank you, Julie. Glad you're joining us today. All right, so let's get to another great tip that I like to do when I'm working. Oops, getting ahead of myself again. When I'm working with stretch fabrics. Apparently I don't have the image here. Apologize for that. I thought that I did, but at any rate, it is in the description of the post, or in the blog post, rather. So, if you are finding it challenging to hem your knit loungewear, or anything really, honestly, keeping your hem in place while you're kind of top stitching it, you can try using strips of sulky, sticky Fabrisolvi. Now, it's just what it says. It is sticky-backed stabilizer that is solvi, aka water soluble. So if you get a roll of sulky, sticky Fabrisolvi, yes, you do not have to always use stabilizer for embroidery. It is great for so many different things. Cut little strips of it, put it along the entire hem or neckline or sleeve hem of your garment, and then sew the hem. When you are completed, you can throw your item in the washing machine, and all of the sticky Fabrisolvi washes away. No one knows your secret. No puckering, no wavy hems, no nothing. It's fantastic. So definitely grab some sticky Fabrisolvi to help with those hems. You might be creating these lettuce edge hems, especially with something like a slinky knit. Very, very hard to control that hem and not stretch it as it sews. So that stabilizer, just make sure it's wider than your hem allowance, and you'll just tape it along the entire bottom or the entire portion of hem. And what's great about working with a knit is you don't have to do a double fold hem, right? Because it's not going to fray. So you can just fold it over once, do your twin needle top stitching, and with your sticky Fabrisolvi, this I did with a twin needle. So you can see, it's a little crooked over here, but hey, who's gonna see my loungewear? Except you all. There's my twin needle top stitching. And I did this with sticky Fabrisolvi on the hems. So it's all shown to you in picture tutorial on that blog post. And, very, very easy. Makes it very, very easy to sew that. And you can see there's no wavy hem here. It's perfect. So definitely try that. Oh, Amanda says, my hems are wavy. What am I doing wrong? So that's precisely my point, is what's happening is your hem is stretching even slightly while you're sewing it. And so when you pull it away from the presser foot, it wants to go back to where it used to be. And so then you get these little waves going on. Now, that can be a look. There used to be a lettuce hem kind of look, and people did it on purpose. Or maybe it was by accident, and then they just said, hey, this is a look now. Because as sewers, we are notorious for just saying, I meant to do that, right? And that's okay too. But at any rate, it's because there is stretching happening while you're sewing. So to avoid that, try the stabilizer tip. Now, if you don't have sticky Fabrisolvi, I've also tried to use just Sulky Tear Easy, which is just a tear away stabilizer. But it becomes tricky when you're tearing it away. You don't want to pop any of your stitches. And with a delicate kind of twin needle hem here, see you've got your twin needle stitching on the top, and then it looks like a little bit of zigzag on the other side, which is giving you that little bit of stretch that you need for your leggings hem. But at any rate, for a delicate kind of stitch like that, you definitely don't want to risk pulling out any of the threads. So I found that the wash away, the sticky Fabrisolvi, was a better choice because it would just wash away. I didn't have to tear at it, try to pull it away from the stitches. So definitely grab that. All right. Kathleen says, love that. Sticky Solvi sounds great. Yeah, you will just, it can be our little secret. You don't have to tell anybody that you did that. All right. Rachel is saying, any tips for cutting out stretchy fabric? That's a great question. So when I cut out stretch fabric, I always use pattern weights. I have some favorite pattern weights that I use. They're basically like a little thin little snake filled with sand. and I cannot find them anymore. Every time I show them, everybody asks me, where did I get those? And I can't tell you because they don't exist anymore, but you could probably make your own. I like the snake kind of pattern weights because you can move them around. They don't have anything pokey on them. You know, some pattern weights have those little teeth on the bottom so that when you're working with a woven fabric, it doesn't go anywhere, right? It's like extra security. But for a knit fabric, I love the flexible kind of snake-like pattern weights because they will go around curves while you're cutting and things like that. You definitely do not want any fabric going off of your table. Same reason you don't want it going off of your machine bed while you're sewing, because it's going to stretch. Even if you don't think it is stretching, it probably is to some degree. So you can always fold up or roll the excess while you're cutting out each section out of your yardage. And that way it's not, you know, falling and dropping towards the floor or even ever so slightly off of your table. You don't want that while you're cutting. So pattern weights, no pooling off of the floor, and a rotary cutter. I always use a rotary cutter when I'm cutting out knits because, again, I can swiftly go around corners and curves and I don't have to shift my body or the pattern or move anything while I'm cutting it out. And always, always pre-wash your knits. Anytime I'm making a garment, I pre-wash it. Anytime I know I'm going to wash and use and wear something over and over again, always wash it first, prep it by washing, pressing if I need to, and, you know, washing and drying as I would the final garment, just to ensure any shrinkage happens prior to making anything. So you'll do that, then you'll cut out all of your pieces. If you have a knit fabric that tends to roll, you can use the little Clover Wonder Clips. I always have these at hand. We have them at sulky.com. You can use your Clover Wonder Clips and kind of clip your pattern pieces in place along each piece. And then as you need each one, then you can take your piece away and clip your pieces together. All right. And using clips rather than pins ensures that you won't have additional snags. So I have a lot of old pins and, you know, pins that are slightly bent and things like that. You just don't want to run the risk of a burr on your needle or something when you're pinning your pieces and then you pull it out and there goes your really nice yardage because you've gotten a snag that has run the entire width of that fabric. So using those clips and keeping your pattern pieces sort of on the yardage up until the point of sewing, that paper or tissue will kind of tame, you know, that fabric and reduce the probability that it will start rolling on you. So there's that. Okay. Marianne says to cut Slinky Fabrics, just use the Ginger scissors that have serrated blades. The fabric will not slip. Oh, great tip. Serrated blades. That's nice. I always use my trusty rotary cutter. Again, something else to consider. Replace your rotary cutter blades as we start off 2021. Get some new blades, dispose safely of the old ones, and then you are ready to sew for a good chunk of the first part of 2021. If you can't remember the last time you switched out your rotary cutter blade, do it today. You will be amazed probably at, you know, the next thing that you cut after you replace your blades. You'll be like, wow, why didn't I do that sooner? You know, it's always the last thing I think about, sharpening my scissors and getting new rotary blades. But if you can get those done along with servicing your machine for the new year and getting a bunch of needle packs, you'll be ready to go. And you'll cut out a lot of problems that you might have just by making sure that your tools are in tip-top shape. Okay, Pat is asking, could you please give dimensions for a DIY snake pattern weight? So I should definitely do a post on this. for a pattern weight, and I would also use knit fabric for the pattern weight because, you know, you want it to follow curves and things like that. You probably finish dimensions, probably 1.5 inches or so. So, you know, double that and add some seam allowance. And then I would create them in different lengths because, you know, you might only need a little kind of small one around the crotch curve, or you might want something larger along, you know, that outer leg seam, things like that. So just make them in different lengths so that you have some different options for your project. Okay. Jean says, I use the old blades for cutting paper or pictures. Great idea. If they're still working, but maybe, you know, there's a little portion of it that always kind of sticks or something like that, then hey, if you can get more use out of it, that's fantastic. All right. And Glenn Gala says, I just changed my rotary blade today. It did make a difference. Yeah, it's like I said, it's amazing once you kind of realize, whoa, I should have done that probably 6 months ago. My life would have been so much easier. All right, so I also want to talk about threads for loungewear, of course. You know, we're Sulky of America. We are a thread company. Let's get to the nitty gritty. So when I'm working on loungewear, or a lot of garments really, I like to use Sulky Poly Deco. Like I mentioned, that is what is in the serger over here. And yes, there are lots of different colors in there because my kids like to use lots of different colors when they're sewing pajamas and projects. They never want the fabric or the thread to match. They always pick the craziest color to go with their fabric. So that's why that's there, because we've been doing a lot of sewing over this winter break. It's been great. So anyways, I like to use the polyester thread for loungewear, for a lot of garment construction because it's really, really strong. And it's a little bit heavier weight than your traditional all-purpose thread. So it's going to be stronger and last longer. Also for decorative details, top stitching, decorative stitching, you know, to add a little bling to your project. You can also use the Poly Deco for those things, you know, and then you have the nice sheen and the nice pop of color that the Poly Deco provides. So I like using that. I also like using Cotton and Steel thread by Sulky. Now this is a 50 weight thread. A lot of the times I kind of use this as my all-purpose go-to thread when I want a cotton thread. And it's lighter weight than that Poly Deco. So if you have a lighter weight, stretchier knit, you can go with the Cotton and Steel thread. Use a stretch stitch or your serger so that your stitch will stretch with the fabric, okay? So always important to remember that. Which leads me to our giveaway today. Forgot to mention at the top of the episode. So if you're still here with me, you'll get the information here. So today I'm giving away to one lucky viewer during this Facebook Live a 6-pack of Sulky Cotton and Steel thread. Now, I should have restocked my thread box before I showed it to you because one of my threads is over here. But at any rate, I'm going to be giving away a 6-pack of Cotton and Steel thread. This is unprecedented, everybody, because this is $49.99. Comes in this cute, cute packaging. You will want to display it in your sewing room as well. It's like decor as well as super useful and awesome thread. So this is very, very high quality, long staple cotton thread. I like to use this in my serger as well. It works great. And so make sure you are commenting, asking questions, liking, sharing the post today. Make sure you like the Facebook, the Sulky page as well. Sometimes you can comment and things like that without liking the page, and then I have no way of contacting you. So make sure you like the page as well. And then I will pick a random winner from all of you out there engaging with the post today to win a 6-pack. But I like to use this thread as well, especially working with knits. Pairing the cotton with a cotton knit, a great, great choice. So, woo, everybody loves Cotton and Steel. Here we go with all the hearts. I love it. Have you all ever worked with the 50 weight cotton and steel? It's great for quilting. It's great for piecing. If you normally piece together quilt blocks and you notice that you have a little bit of a bump when you're pressing open seams or pressing seams to one side, that means that your thread is a little bit too heavyweight. So using a little bit lighter weight 50 weight thread, you get a really nice flat seam when you press it. And it's just fantastic for quilting. So, all right. Oh, this is hilarious. Sharon would prefer a 6-pack of thread to a 6-pack of beer. Love it, Sharon. All right. So let's see. Now I want to get to the other part of the tutorial that was in the blog post is creating a great pair of leggings. So we've talked about fabrics. We have talked about needles. We have talked about notions that make our life easier, those seam guides and that sticky Fabrisolve. And we have talked about thread. And I'm going to share with you another great option for thread to use for sort of embellishment too. But I want to share with you this great tutorial that Emily Thompson from Life So Savory has on her blog. And I linked to it in our blog post so you can get there easily. It's a free leggings pattern. Now, this is a tighter fit legging pattern. You can always widen your seam allowances. You can always add a couple of inches to the outer seam of these pants to kind of give yourself a little bit more room if you choose a fabric that doesn't have as much stretch. Something that's more of like a cotton knit blend or t-shirt knit rather, that is going to be a little bit flowier than like a spandex knit. So you can kind of start with her base pattern and then do some modifications based on the style that you like to wear. But again, this is great for loungewear, and then this can also take you to workout wear. So she created a number of different sizes. There's a kid's pattern up to adult sizes. And here I was just showing you that she's using a clear elastic for this particular version. And she also has another one where you're using a knit elastic, which is what I've used here. This is my version of her pant pattern. You'll find that free pattern on her site, which is again, Life So, SEW, Savory. And Emily has worked with us on a number of projects for Sulky, and she just has a really, really great tutorial style. But as you can see, these are like a tight-fitting legging pant. These would also be great for pajamas as well. But I just wanted to give you a free resource for a great pattern that I myself have used. So I know that it turns out great and that you guys will love it. So some of the materials to use, again, she shows that clear elastic as well as using the traditional kind of stretch elastic or the no roll elastic, which is what I like to buy for pants like this. So you have options, and this is cut so that you don't have a front and a back piece. It's just one big piece, and then you're going to sew those inseams. So you don't have that seam on the outside creating that extra sort of bump, right? It's just really tight fitting close to your leg. So I really enjoyed that about that pattern. So again, you'll find the link to that on our blog post, which I linked to in the description of the post. All right. So I'm seeing some bot in the chat, so don't be bothered by these people. Deborah is saying, clear elastic? What? So a lot of the times you will see this with like the bra making supplies, or if you're making underwear or a swimsuit, a lot of the times clear elastic is used in certain areas and of the garment, and it's rather thin. Okay, it's rather narrow. So you'll find it there, but it's a lot of information on that on her post. All right. Leah's saying, do you find that they roll or do they stay up? So there are two options with Emily's pattern. There's one that has no elastic, and you cut that waistband smaller than the upper edge of your pants. That was the image that I showed earlier. So you could see that the waistband is cut slightly narrower or slightly smaller than the top of the pant. And in that case, you would stretch the waistband piece to fit as you're sewing. I know I said don't stretch while you're sewing, but in some cases you need to for things like a cuff on a pant leg or the waistband of the pants. Excuse me. And that will make your waistband kind of cinch to your body. So you could do that and maybe not even use elastic. For my pants, I used a really wide elastic, honestly, because that is what I had in my stash. So this is 1.5 inch elastic. It's a little wide for like workout pants, but these I created in a heavier t-shirt knit. So they are flowier, or they have more ease to them than like a spandex knit, which is what she's showing in her pictures there. Okay, Lynn says, please say the name of the free leggings website again. So that is lifesewsavory.com. So spelled S-E-W. And that gal is Emily Thompson. Brenda is saying, where do I find the blog post? I linked to the blog post in the description of today's post, and you'll find it in the comments here. So you can also head on over to blog.sulky.com and search for loungewear. It's the first post that will come up because we posted it today. All right. And Linda says, do you have any suggestions for good quality knit for leggings? So we talked a lot about fabric at the beginning of the show. You might have missed that part. If you did miss that part, I really love going to So English Fabrics. So S-O, So S-E-W, English Fabrics. They have a great selection of knits and different knit blends that you will find that are really high quality. So, check them out. I love them. They're great people as well. So you'll enjoy that. So we talked about all of these great things. We talked about thread. Another cool addition to loungewear, especially workout wear. Let's say you like to walk the dogs at night. It's getting, it's dark pretty early these days. Around my area, it's getting dark about 4:30. So if you like to walk the dogs at night or after sundown, or if you like to run or even ride bikes at night, or, at 4:30, Sulky Cry thread would be great for top stitching or even machine embroidery embellishments. Whether you're working with a knit, it is a little bit heavier weight thread, so keep that in mind. This would work great with fleece, with sweatshirt knit, and even a fleece headband, something like that. It would work great for top stitching along a dog collar or dog harness because it is a reflective thread. Cry stands for coated reflective yarn. All right, and this is the coolest thing. So here you can see it. This is it reflecting light. So it almost looks like glow in the dark, but it's really just reflective. So when the car lights, come around the corner, they can see you. So just something I thought would be a cool addition, something to think about when you're creating loungewear / workout wear, is embellishing it with this type of thread. So here you can see, isn't that cool? So this is a little bit of loungewear, a little sweatshirt with a just decorative top stitching detail. So just choose some decorative threads on your sewing machine and do kind of these like tribal designs around the arms. That would be really cool on a leggings pattern as well. Adding that coated reflective yarn thread, and then again, the machine embroidery on some kind of hat or fleece headband is just another cool touch. So something to think about. You can add that if you plan to take your loungewear to working out. So I just wanted to add that as another option. And someone's asking, what needle do I use for the cry thread? So I recommend a size 90-14 needle. The size is what you want to be aware of when you're working with a heavier weight thread. You need a larger eye on your needle, so that would be the size of your needle. And then the type of your needle is going to be determined by the weight of your, sometimes the weight of your fabric, but a lot of the times the technique, okay? So a top stitching needle would be great and almost foolproof for a lot of different applications with that thread. So top stitching 90-14 you could use for machine embroidery or decorative top stitching. So that kind of has a double duty. It does have a sharper point, a top stitching needle. So that would be for like fleece or a heavier weight knit like the sweatshirt knit I was talking about. If you're using like a traditional knit, you'll want to go with a more ballpoint needle. Even a a embroidery needle has a slight ball point to it. So if you're doing machine embroidery on a lighter weight or stretchier knit, you can get away with a embroidery needle that is a size 90-14. All right. Okay. Shirley's asking, how do you compensate for the stretch when decorative stitches are used? So that's a great question. Now, a lot of the times I will cut a little swatch of my stretch fabric and stabilize it, okay, using that sticky Fabra-Solvy or even a piece of Cutaway Plus, depending on the weight of the fabric, and I will adhere it using the Sulky KK2000 temporary spray adhesive so that my fabric isn't going anywhere. I'll stabilize it, and then I will test some different stretch or different decorative stitches. Some of them, like a honeycomb stitch, that would be a great stitch to use as a decorative stitch because it has all those zigzags, right? And you will see that when you go to stretch your fabric a little bit, that stitch will also stretch with your fabric. You don't want to use something like a satin stitch. That's too heavy and it's going to constrict the movement of your knit fabric. You want to pick something that is an open, airier stitch that has zigs and zags to it. That's just kind of my recommendation. But always do a test on a little swatch. And again, stabilizing that fabric, especially with something that is water soluble like the sticky Fabra-Solvy that you can just wash away when you're done, is going to be your best friend because those decorative stitches go different ways, right? And that's also helpful when doing a little practice, is you can see where your fabric is moving while it is sewing out. And then you can get a feel for or anticipate the needle movements when you're sewing your fabric. So very important to do just some little tests and make sure that you're choosing the best thing for the finished garment. Okay, Joanne is saying, do you use cry in the bobbin also? No, I do not. It's a thicker thread. There's not that much on the spool, right? And we're not going to see the wrong side of this, right? It's a garment. And it's also got a little bit of a texture to it. So we don't really want that against our skin. Two things you can do for that. One, just pair it with sulky bobbin thread. And that's also going to ensure that you have a great balanced stitch. When you're doing decorative sewing, you want to make sure that your top thread goes slightly towards the back side of your work. And in machine embroidery, you will see that a lot. When you turn over the work, you'll notice your top thread is kind of showing on the back. That's actually telling you that you have a balanced stitch. Now, if there's too much showing on the back, or if your bobbin thread is showing on the right side, then we've got to kind of mess with the tensions a little bit until that balanced stitch is formed. I will say I hate messing with tension because I feel like I'm never going to get things back to where they once were. So always note what you're doing so you can take steps back if needed. Very, very important to do that so that you don't end up at the machine dealer or at your sewing machine repair trying to get your machine back where it once was. If you have a super fancy machine with with a lot of different choices regarding tension, then you can easily go back to where you started just by, resetting the factory settings and things like that. But for cry thread, this 30 weight decorative thread, use the sulky bobbin thread in the bobbin, even when doing machine embroidery, because we don't really want to waste that thread. It's kind of expensive. You're not going to see it on the wrong side, so there's no reason to use it there. Deb is asking, oh, hey, Deb. What's up, Deb? Okay, Deb's asking, does sulky bobbin thread come on pre-wound bobbins? Yes, it does. There are two different styles, so it's like L and K, I want to say. I should know this. There are two different styles, so make sure you get the right style, or right size, rather, that you need for your machine brand. But yes, they come pre-wound. Such a time saver. Love that. All right. And actually, Deb was the one who submitted this photo for the New Year's Eve sew-along. So thanks for joining, Deb. And absolutely love your finished project. It was fantastic. I'm going to give you some applause. Some applause. I love my sound effects. Okay. All right, so I think we covered a lot today regarding the stretch fabric. Again, everybody who is commenting, liking, sharing is automatically eligible to win today's great prize, rather, which is a 6-pack of sulky cotton and steel thread, our 50 weight thread, coming in this really cute little box here. And guess what? Cotton and steel thread is on sale today. 20% off. So you can go grab your individual spools and, complete your collection, things like that. And you guys will love working with this thread. So while it's on sale, grab it up and definitely like, share, comment, thumbs up, loves, whatever little emojis you'd like to give me today. And you could be a winner of this fantastic prize. And again, please join me for the MJ Kinman Quilting with Sparkle videocast. It's next Tuesday at 2 p.m. and next week we will be going in depth with MJ and learning lots and lots about her. So definitely tune in to our So What next Tuesday, as well as that videocast. And you can register quite easily by just jumping on over to the link that I put in the description of today's post. So that's going to be a really, really great class and great project that is exclusive to all of you in the videocast, your Pinwheel Princesses little quilt blocks. So, all right. Thanks everybody for joining me today. I had a great time. And please join me next time on another So What and for our Quilting with Sparkle videocast. And have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much.